I was 45 minutes away from closing a $42 million portfolio transition when the CEO's daughter fired me. Not for poor performance, not for compliance issues, but because her boyfriend needed my job. Here's what they didn't know. Those clients weren't just account numbers on a screen. They were relationships I'd built over 23 years. And they were about to find out what happens when you put a digital marketing consultant in charge of managing multi-million-dollar investment portfolios. My name is Austin Crawford, and at 51, I'd spent more than half my life as a financial advisor at Hamilton Private Wealth in Atlanta. That Thursday morning started like any other. Coffee at 6:15, office by 7 o'clock, reviewing the Wells Manufacturing portfolio transition documents for probably the 50th time. $42 million moving from their previous advisor to us, not our biggest client, but significant enough that I'd personally managed every detail over 8 months of careful planning. You know what really gets me? Just 3 days before this happened, I was having lunch with Patricia Wells at the Capital City Club discussing this exact transition. We'd been sitting overlooking the golf course, and she'd mentioned how much her board appreciated working with someone they could actually trust with their company's financial future. "Austin, you know how many advisors I've dealt with over the years?" she'd said, cutting into her salmon. "Most of them see us as just another commission check. You actually understand what keeps me up at night about our employees' retirement funds." That conversation felt like it happened in another lifetime now, staring at the email that popped up at 3:45 p.m. Not from my supervisor, James, who was in client meetings all week, but from Rachel Hamilton. "Please come to my office immediately. Look, I knew this was coming." Rachel, 28 years old, Wharton MBA, daughter of our founder, Charles Hamilton. She'd been installed as Chief Digital Strategy Officer 10 weeks ago after what the company newsletter called a comprehensive modernization initiative. Translation: Daddy was getting tired of running the day-to-day operations and handed control over to his kid who'd spent the last 3 years disrupting fintech startups in San Francisco. I'd actually tried to give her a fair shot initially. Her presentation to the senior advisors about digital client engagement had some decent points about automated reporting and mobile accessibility. But then she'd started talking about robo-advisors and leveraging AI for portfolio optimization. That's when I knew we had a problem. I saved my work, straightened my tie, and walked down to the corner office that used to belong to a partner with 40 years of market experience. Rachel had completely redesigned it. Gone were the financial journals and industry awards, replaced with motivational posters about embracing digital transformation and a standing desk setup that probably cost more than most people's cars. She didn't look up when I knocked. "Sit down." The chair across from her desk was noticeably lower than hers, a power move I'd seen in amateur management books. Rachel was scrolling through her tablet while her boyfriend Tyler sat in the corner, supposedly taking notes on his laptop, though I could see social media feeds reflected in his screen. "Austin," she finally acknowledged me, setting down her tablet like I was interrupting something important. "We need to discuss your future trajectory here. Is there an issue with the Wells transition? I can walk you through the asset allocation strategy if you need clarification on the risk management protocols. It's not about any specific client." She leaned back, fingers interlaced like she was running a board meeting. "It's about digital evolution, generational realignment, the strategic direction we're taking this firm." Digital evolution, right. I'd billed more hours than any non-partner for 7 consecutive years. My client retention rate was 94%. I'd brought in $5.1 million in new assets under management last year alone, including 4 Fortune 500 companies that had never worked with us before. "But sure, let's talk about strategic alignment." "I'm not following, Rachel. Look, you're competent. Nobody's saying you're not competent." The way she said competent made it sound like a character flaw. But Hamilton Private Wealth is evolving. We need team players who understand innovation, automation, people who think beyond traditional relationship-based paradigms. Here's what I wanted to say: that wealth management succeeded precisely because of those traditional paradigms. Clients with $10 million portfolios don't trust algorithms with their retirement security. They want to call someone who knows their kids' names and remembers their risk tolerance changed after their heart attack. Here's what I actually said. "What exactly are you telling me? Today is your last day. Security will escort you out after you sign these." She slid a packet across the desk with the casual indifference of someone ordering lunch. Non-disclosure agreement, non-compete clause, 8-month severance if you go quietly. My stomach dropped. You're firing me the day before Wells finalizes their transition? Tyler will handle the transition. She glanced at her phone, already mentally checked out from destroying my career. He's been shadowing your processes. Tyler, her boyfriend from the wellness industry who'd started 6 weeks ago as a client experience coordinator. Last week I'd overheard him asking our receptionist what a fiduciary responsibility meant. Tyler, her boyfriend from the wellness industry who'd started 6 weeks ago as a client experience coordinator. Last week I'd overheard him asking our receptionist what a fiduciary responsibility meant. The guy had a marketing degree and some certificates in social media optimization. Tyler isn't licensed with FINRA. He can't legally manage client portfolios or provide investment advice. That's no longer your concern. Her smile was all performance, no warmth. You have 1 hour to clear out your office in Austin. The NDA is non-negotiable. You discuss any client matters, any proprietary information, we will bury you in litigation. This firm has very deep pockets. I stood up slowly, keeping my face neutral while my mind raced. 23 years. Nearly a quarter century of missed family dinners, working through weekends, building relationships with 32 high-net-worth clients who trusted me with their financial futures. 23 years of developing systems, strategies, and processes that kept this firm competitive. Think about my son Austin Jr.'s tuition payment, $31,000 due in 7 weeks for Georgia Tech. Think about my daughter Sophie starting her junior year at UGA, another $29,000 annually. Think about my mother in assisted living, $30,800 monthly for her care in Buckhead. Think about the alimony payments to my ex-wife Linda, $3,200 that don't stop until I'm 62. All of it dependent on my income, my reputation, my career. 1 hour, Rachel repeated, her attention already back on her tablet. Leave your access cards with security. I walked back to my office like I was underwater. Through the glass walls, I could see my colleagues avoiding eye contact. Word traveled fast in wealth management firms. I was radioactive now, contaminated. 1 hour to pack up 23 years. I pulled out my personal laptop, the one I used for after-hours research when the firm's systems were down for maintenance. My personal phone with contact information I'd accumulated over 2 decades of client relationships. My handwritten notes, the kind of market insights and client preferences that couldn't be digitized. My reference materials with margin notes from hundreds of portfolio reviews. My coffee mug that said, "World's Best Dad," a Father's Day gift from Sophie when she was 12. Here's what they couldn't pack into boxes. The relationships I'd built, the personal cell numbers in my phone, the trust earned through countless hours of careful planning and crisis management, the industry knowledge accumulated over nearly 25 years of market volatility, economic downturns, and client hand-holding through every major financial crisis since the dot-com crash. As security watched me fill cardboard boxes, I thought about Patricia Wells, about how her CFO had specifically requested me after I'd helped them navigate the 2020 market crash without panic selling, about how she'd invited me to her son's wedding last summer, about how she had no idea that tomorrow her $42 million portfolio transition would be handled by someone whose biggest financial experience was optimizing Instagram ad spend for yoga studios. I signed the papers, took my boxes, handed over my access cards. But as I walked out of Hamilton Private Wealth for the last time, past the marble lobby with portraits of 3 generations of Hamilton advisors, I wasn't thinking about what I'd lost. I was thinking about what they'd forgotten I still had. And about next Tuesday's Atlanta Financial Planning Association meeting at the Commerce Club, where 52 of the most successful wealth managers in the Southeast would be very interested to hear why Austin Crawford was suddenly available for new opportunities. I sat in my home office at 5:15 p.m., still wearing my suit, staring at those cardboard boxes like they might explain what had just happened. The house felt too quiet for a Thursday evening. Austin Jr. was back at Georgia Tech for fall semester, and Sophie was at her mother's apartment for the week. I should have been celebrating the Wells transition with Patricia and her team at Kevin Rathbun's stake right now. Instead, I was unemployed with 14 years left, until I could even think about retirement. The shock was wearing off, replaced by something sharper. Not just anger, clarity. I opened my laptop and started taking inventory of what I actually possessed, versus what Hamilton Private Wealth thought they owned. The non-compete clause was 8 months, but I knew Georgia employment law better than Rachel did. Non-competes were notoriously difficult to enforce when termination was without cause, especially when you could prove bad faith. Firing someone to make room for an unqualified boyfriend definitely qualified as bad faith. First, my systems. Over 23 years, I'd developed comprehensive frameworks for portfolio management, risk assessment templates, and market analysis protocols. The firm had never required me to transfer these to their servers, probably because nobody there understood their value. They lived in my personal cloud storage, meticulously organized and refined through hundreds of client relationships. Second, the relationships themselves. I scrolled through my personal phone. Patricia Wells, Jim Thompson from Peachtree Manufacturing, Sarah Martinez at Atlanta Holdings. 32 CEOs, CFOs, and family office managers who had my direct number because Hamilton's official channels meant waiting 3 days for a callback. These weren't just business cards from networking events. These were relationships built over decades. People who'd invited me to their children's graduations, who called for advice on everything from estate planning to their kids' college funds. These were relationships built over decades. People who'd invited me to their children's graduations, who called for advice on everything from estate planning to their kids' college funds, who trusted me with their family's financial security because I'd proven myself through years of market volatility and personal crises. Third, the industry connections that Rachel clearly didn't understand. Next Tuesday's Atlanta Financial Planning Association meeting at the Commerce Club, the monthly breakfast group of senior advisors at Peachtree Golf Club, the annual Southeast Wealth Management Conference, where I'd been a featured speaker for 6 years running. My phone buzzed. Tony Rodriguez, my former colleague, texting from inside the firm. Heard what happened. Emergency. Partners meeting Monday. Rachel announced Tyler will transition into senior advisor role. This is insane. I didn't respond. The NDA was vague about personal communications and I wasn't taking chances. But Tony's message confirmed what I suspected. Panic was setting in. I spent the weekend researching and planning. By Sunday night, I'd transformed my dining room into a command center. 23 years of accumulated knowledge spread across the table. Not client files, those belong to Hamilton. But my personal methodologies, my market analysis frameworks, my risk management protocols, the intellectual infrastructure that had made me indispensable. Monday morning, I created a new email address, acrawford.wealth.consulting. Not a competing firm, just a professional presence. Updated my LinkedIn to independent wealth management consultant, portfolio strategy and risk management. No mention of Hamilton Private Wealth, no violation of any agreement. Then I waited exactly 30 days. That was crucial, showing good faith, proving I wasn't rushing to violate my agreements. During those 30 days, I watched from the sidelines as Hamilton Private Wealth began to implode. Tuesday brought the Atlanta Financial Planning Association meeting I'd been anticipating. The Commerce Club's dining room was packed with the usual crowd, 52 of the most influential wealth managers in Georgia. I'd been attending these monthly gatherings for 18 years. Austin Crawford, Jim Foster from Foster & Associates called out as I walked in. Heard you've got some big news brewing. Word traveled at light speed in Atlanta's financial community. Within minutes, I was surrounded by colleagues, all curious about my sudden availability. I kept my responses professional but vague. Exploring new opportunities, I said repeatedly. Sometimes change opens doors you didn't know existed. The real conversations happened during golf the following Saturday at Peachtree Golf Club. Jim had invited me for their usual foursome. As we stood on the 8th tee, he cut straight to the point. Austin, I've got 6 clients asking if you're available for consulting work. Nothing that would violate any agreements. Just independent portfolio analysis and risk assessment. By the 15th hole, I'd received similar inquiries from the other 2 advisors in our group. Word was spreading that Tyler's digital optimization efforts were creating problems. Big problems. The first crisis hit during week 3. Sarah Martinez from Atlanta Holdings called my personal phone at 6:45 a.m. on a Wednesday. Austin, I know you can't discuss Hamilton business, but we just received a compliance notice from FINRA. Something about our portfolio concentration ratios. Tyler filed what he called an optimized response, but the potential fine is $2.1 million. I'd seen dozens of these notices. FINRA had started aggressive enforcement of new diversification requirements 6 months ago. Firms had 30 days to remediate or face escalating penalties. Sarah, I can't provide official advice without proper registration, but as a friend, I'd suggest you get specialized compliance counsel to review that notice immediately. Can you recommend someone? Send me the notice. No charge for a friend to take a look and point you in the right direction. The document arrived within minutes. One glance told me everything. Atlanta Holdings' portfolio concentration violated the new federal guidelines. Tyler had filed a template response that completely missed the technical compliance requirements. They had 6 days left to fix a problem that would take 15 days minimum to resolve properly. Sarah, you need emergency compliance counsel today. This isn't routine paperwork. You're looking at potential criminal violations if this isn't handled correctly. Look, I'd been through this exact scenario during the 2018 regulatory updates. I knew the difference between a minor filing issue and a company-killing compliance nightmare. This was the latter. By Thursday of week 4, I'd received similar calls from 11 other clients. Each crisis followed the same pattern: complex regulatory issues, Tyler's incompetent responses, millions in potential exposure. Here's the thing. These weren't accidents. Tyler genuinely believed that automated software could handle FINRA compliance. He'd actually told one client that their risk management protocols were legacy thinking that needed digital disruption. Week 5 brought the call I'd been expecting. Patricia Wells, her voice tight with controlled frustration. Austin, the Wells transition completed, but there's a critical compliance issue. Tyler missed a new SEC reporting requirement that went into effect last month. We're looking at a $3.2 million liability that should have been identified during the transition process. Our board is demanding answers. The reporting requirement, a new SEC rule that had gone into effect 3 months ago. I'd flagged it in my personal transition notes, but those notes were in my files, not Hamilton's system. Patricia, I can't discuss specifics about your account, but after my restriction period ends next week, I'd be happy to review your situation as an independent consultant. Would Foster & Associates be interested in representing us? Foster & Associates, the boutique firm that handled sophisticated wealth management with a fraction of Hamilton's overhead. Jim Foster had been trying to recruit me for years, usually over drinks at the Capital City Club. I think they might be very interested in discussing your needs. The 30-day mark hit on a Friday. That afternoon, I called Jim Foster. Austin Crawford. I've been wondering when you'd call. Interested in discussing some potential opportunities? Come in Monday morning. And Austin, bring your golf clubs. I think we need to have a long conversation about the future. Monday morning at Foster & Associates felt like stepping into a different world. Where Hamilton Private Wealth was all intimidation and corporate theater, Foster's office had the comfortable efficiency of a firm that cared more about results than appearances. Jim Foster, 61 years old with 35 years in wealth management, had built his reputation by being smart instead of flashy. Austin Crawford, he said, standing up from behind a desk that actually looked used. I've been wondering when you'd finally leave that circus. I didn't exactly leave voluntarily. Rachel Hamilton called me last week, Jim said, his tone dry. Warned me about a former employee who might try to violate his non-compete. Suggested that any firm that helped you would face litigation. My stomach tightened. And your response? I told her Foster & Associates doesn't respond well to threats, especially empty ones from children playing dress-up in daddy's business suits. Over the next hour, Jim laid out his proposal. Senior advisor position, not partner initially. That kept me clear of any non-compete issues. 70-30 split in my favor. Full compliance coverage and litigation support when Hamilton inevitably came after me. The thing is, Austin, I've been getting calls. Patricia Wells, Jim Thompson, others. They're not happy with the service they're getting, but they're also scared. Nobody wants to be the first to jump ship and face Rachel's litigation threats. So what are you suggesting? That we make jumping ship feel less like jumping and more like boarding a luxury yacht. By Wednesday, the crisis calls were coming faster than I could handle them properly. Sarah Martinez called with an emergency. FINRA had escalated their penalty to $4.8 million after Tyler filed another inadequate response. Sarah, I can't represent you while I'm still bound by agreements, but I know someone who can help immediately. Can you work with them starting Monday? Yes. Thursday brought the call I'd been expecting but dreading. Charles Hamilton himself, Austin. The voice was older than I remembered, strained in a way that made me think he'd been getting similar calls all week. "We need to talk. Mr. Hamilton, how can I help you?" "You know exactly how. My firm is hemorrhaging clients. 18 companies have terminated their advisory agreements in 4 weeks. This has to stop. You know what really got me?" He actually sounded surprised. "Sir, those companies made their own decisions about financial representation. I haven't solicited anyone. Don't insult my intelligence. This is coordinated. This is revenge." I thought about Rachel in her standing desk setup, about Tyler playing on social media while portfolios collapsed, about 23 years of loyalty repaid with humiliation. "Mr. Hamilton, this is consequences. Your daughter replaced me with someone who thinks portfolio management is automated software." A long pause. When he spoke again, his voice was smaller. "I'll handle Rachel. Come back. Name your terms. Full partnership, your own division, whatever you want. It's too late for that. It's never too late. I built this firm from nothing in 1983. I won't watch it die because of my daughter's mistakes." For a moment, I almost felt sorry for him. Charles had built something impressive over 40 years, but he'd also made the choice to step away and leave it in incompetent hands. "I don't want anything from you, Mr. Hamilton. I just want to practice wealth management competently for clients who deserve better than what they've been getting." By Friday afternoon, Jim was grinning like a man who'd just won the lottery. 25 companies have either terminated Hamilton or requested proposals from us. 25 out of how many total clients? 32 total clients. "Austin, I've been in this business for 35 years. I've never seen anything like this. It's not just that they're leaving Hamilton, they're specifically asking for you by name." The call that ended everything came on a Tuesday morning 14 weeks after Rachel had fired me. I was in my new Foster & Associates office when my assistant knocked. "Mr. Crawford, Channel 2 wants a comment. Hamilton Private Wealth just filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection." I turned on the conference room TV. The anchor was mid-sentence. "Confirm that the 40-year-old wealth management firm has filed for emergency reorganization after losing approximately 78% of their assets under management over the past 4 months." The screen showed Rachel Hamilton outside the federal courthouse, flanked by crisis management lawyers. She looked nothing like the confident MBA who'd fired me 14 weeks ago. Dark circles under her eyes told the story of someone who hadn't slept properly in weeks. "No comment," she repeated to reporters, but one journalist persisted. "Ms. Hamilton, is it true that unlicensed staff were managing multi-million-dollar portfolios?" Rachel made the critical mistake of trying to defend the indefensible. "This is a coordinated attack orchestrated by competitors. Who are you referring to?" "Austin Crawford, the advisor we terminated 14 weeks ago. She'd just confirmed on live television that my firing had been strategic rather than performance-related, undermining any remaining legal claims they might have had." Jim Foster appeared in my doorway, shaking his head. "She just made her lawyers' jobs 10 times harder." 8 months later, I stood in my permanent corner office at Foster & Associates. I'd made partner after successfully transitioning 25 former Hamilton clients to our firm. Tony Rodriguez was across the hall as a senior associate, handling compliance with his usual precision. My phone buzzed with a text from Austin Jr. "Dad, made Dean's List again. Thanks for showing me that setbacks can become comebacks." Another from Patricia Wells. "Austin, the board approved our nomination of Foster & Associates for Wealth Manager of the Year. Well deserved." At 51, I wasn't just surviving my mid-career crisis. I was thriving because of how I'd handled it. The golf games with clients at Peachtree continued. The monthly Atlanta Financial Planning Association meetings remained productive. The relationships built over 23 years had proven more durable than any single firm's letterhead. Rachel Hamilton had taught me the most important lesson of my financial career. Competence and relationships matter more than automation and disruption. When someone shows you who they really are through their actions, believe them. Sometimes that meant letting the incompetent destroy themselves while you focused on building something better.